there's no one absolute way to hit a forehand. There's a lot of varieties in terms of the grip, in terms of the backswing, the hitting stance at the moment of contact, and even the follow through. But all good players all good forehands have the same things, the same basics in common. So what I'm going to do is show you a beginner's type forehand, the basics, and then from there we'll look at the different variations that I just talked about. So if I were to teach a beginner how to hit a forehand, the first thing is the grip. Hitting a forehand is the same thing as hitting the ball like with the palm of your hand. The same thing is like this. So that being said, to find the grip, take your hand, put it against the strings, bring it down the handle, and then hold on to it. Make sure your thumb and your forefinger are wrapped around the grip. You're not going to go like this or like that. So there's your grip, and the ready position is with the feet at shoulder width and the racket in front of you. What I'd like beginners to think about when they're learning the forehand is their racket awareness. And I tell beginners to imagine in the ready position that they can balance a coin on the edge of their racket right here. So if you stand like this, the coin is going to fall off, or like this, or like that. So make sure the coin is balanced. All good forehands have, like I said, a few things in common. All forehands have a backswing, a hit, and a follow through. So for a beginner, I would tell the beginner to keep the coin balanced, bring the racket straight back to the back fence with the coin balanced all the way back, and the contact point is a little bit in front of the left foot, in front of the body, again with the coin balanced, and the follow through is out towards the fence. So those are the basics. Backswing, hit, follow through. It's very important though that when you make contact, you don't hit the ball and come off it too soon. All good forehands, all good shots in tennis, hold the ball for a length of time. If I had a still action camera, I could show you that at the moment of contact, three things happen. The ball, since it's pressurized rubber, squashes very flat like a pancake. The strings, since they're elastic, cups back, and the racket bends back. So when you make contact with the ball, you actually hold the ball on the strings for a length of time. So you don't want to hit the ball and get rid of it too soon. You want to make contact and try to imagine there's 3 or 4 or 5 balls here. And you want to hit through all the balls through the contact zone. So that being said, the forehand swing, if I were to look down like a bird's eye view, the forehand swing is not so much a circular swing, but it's more of a linear swing. Here is an example of how you don't want to hit a forehand. You don't want to make contact and then get rid of it too soon like this. You want to make sure you swing through the ball and swing through the contact zone and hold the ball on your string as long as possible, like this. So all good forehands stay with the ball. All good forehands at the end of the backswing have a bit of a lay back to the wrist because at the moment of contact, again, the wrist is laid back, and I want to keep that wrist laid back through the hit zone. All good forehands, of course, also have early preparation, and when you make contact, you want to watch the ball onto the strings as long as possible, and that makes sure you hit the ball in the middle of the strings. So those are the basics: backswing, hit, and follow through. It's also important on the follow through to really follow through. A lot of beginners think that since the ball has left the strings, they can stop their racket right here. But really, a long follow through shows that you have accelerated through the hit zone. If you were to stop your follow through about right here, then you would be decelerating before you even made contact. So you want to make sure a nice long follow through, make sure that you've gone through, you've accelerated through the hit zone. So those are the basics of a forehand. Backswing, hit by watching the ball, staying with the ball, and then a nice long follow through. Not for the variations. The grip I just showed you was the basic Eastern grip, as it's called. But most people today, most top players, have what's called a Western grip because it was popularized in the Western U.S., where the courts were a concrete court and the ball bounced up high. So the Western grip allowed you to hit the ball if it was high like this. So one way to find the Western grip is to place the racket on the ground and just pick it up. This is the palm. I told you for the Eastern grip was like this. For the Western, the palm is beneath, almost beneath the racket. So you have a Western grip, you you have an Eastern grip. What you don't see nowadays anymore, it's called the continental grip, where the hand is more this way, and it looks like this. The continental grip is good for lower shots, but it's sort of like fallen out of favor. Most players today have an Eastern grip or a Western grip. There's actually a grip in between the two called an Australian grip. In between a full Eastern and a full Western, about right here, is called an Australian grip. So the main thing is your hand is behind the racket, and you're able to feel like you're using the palm of your hand for the shot. So those are the variations in the grip. There's also variations in the backswing. Again, I just showed you how to bring the racket straight back with the coin balance, then you make contact, you follow through. Very rarely do people hit the ball that way. It's good to teach beginners the basics of the forehand, but after a while, you want to learn to add a loop to your backswing. And there are three kinds of loops. If I were to bring your racket back and then at the end of my swing, make a small loop back here, that's called a hairpin loop. I bring it back, a small loop at the end of my backswing, and I come through, it's a hairpin loop. You don't see that very often. It was more popular with the Eastern grip. You saw players like Chris Evert and Ken Rosewall use a hairpin loop. Those were the kind of players that had more like side spin shots or underspin shots on their forehand. Today, what's more popular is a full loop, where you bring the racket back above your head or above your shoulder at least, and the elbow stays in the middle, and you're making a circle. I'll bring it back behind me, and notice how my elbow stays in the middle of a circle. Here's my top loop, and then I create a bottom loop like this, and then when I make contact, I've completed the loop, and that motion is good for getting top spin. When you combine the loop, the full loop, the circle loop, with a Western grip, as most players today do, that's how a lot of topspin is manufactured. The hairpin loop is not quite as popular anymore. There's also a whiplash loop. You'll see Andy Roddick do this. When he brings the racket back, his elbow leads on the backswing like this, and what happens is he does a whiplash, and that's pretty difficult to do. You must have very, very good timing for that. Very few players have what's called the whiplash loop. They either have a full circle loop or some variation of a hairpin loop. So we have variations in the grip, in the backswing, also the hitting stance. In the old days, people were taught to make sure they step into the shots with their left foot if you're a righty, and that's called a closed stance forehand. But that's, again, sort of fallen out of favor. You also have a square stance where you're stepping into the ball this way, straight into the ball, and the open stance is like this, where I load my weight onto my right leg, and then as I hit the ball, I rotate over my left hip, and I follow through like that. The open stance is a very popular shot today, a very popular stance, but really a good player has command of all three different stances. The closed stance with the left foot this way, the square stance going forward, and the open stance, which probably creates the most power. And then finally, there's variations in the follow through. Again, going back to the old days when you were taught to step in with your left foot, the follow through looked like this. We're told to point the racket over the fence. And then about in the mid-90s, more and more teaching pros were teaching more of a wraparound follow through, where the racket wrapped around your neck like this. Many pros were saying to imagine you had a watch on your right arm, on your right wrist, and as you follow through, see if you can hear imagine you can hear the ticking of the watch in your left ear. That did a couple of things. It got the racket over your shoulder, of course, but it made your wrist turn this way. That follow through has evolved into what's popular today. You see on TV a lot, the windshield wiper loop. So you make contact, you push it out, and then the racket makes like a windshield wiper motion, but it's follow through down by your left hip. So again, the variations in the follow through are the real old-fashioned way from the 60s and 70s, where you're told to follow over the fence with the coin, of course, falling off with the racket string still perpendicular to the court, and then that evolved to a wraparound follow through over your left shoulder if you're right-handed, and then that evolved into a windshield wiper follow through. When that's combined with an open stance and a Western grip, it looks like this. Okay, you won't go wrong though with the basics. Going back to the basics again, make sure you have a good solid grip. the ready position, you have the point balance. Make sure you have an early upper body turn. Get the racket back early. You can decide what kind of loop you want to use later. Whether you step into it or whether you go open stance, make sure you make contact in front of your body, not behind your body, but in front, with a nice, firm, yet laid-back wrist. As you watch the ball come into your strings, don't get rid of the ball too soon. Make sure you stay with the ball through 3 or 4 or 5 balls, and then you follow through. Again, you have variations there. So I'll hit some basic forehands here, so you can watch. I have my ready position. I'm going to turn upper body early. All right, and I'm going to make sure I watch the ball, and I'm going to stay with the ball through the contact zone. Now, I have a pretty much old-fashioned game, so I like to follow through pretty much like that. But as long as you stick to the basics, backswing, step or open stance, watch the ball, stay with it, keep your eyes down on the ball. Watch Roger Federer in his slow motion sequences. You'll see his eyes stay on the contact zone all the way, and then he looks up. One final forehand here. I'm going to do a hairpin loop. I'm going to do a square stance. And I'm going to have a nice long follow through. So keep all those thoughts in mind, and I think your forehand will improve dramatically. Thank you.